Hello, I'm Oral Gibbs, and welcome to Oral Gibbs Live. Oral Gibbs Live has been around for a very, very long time, over 30 years. And before I introduce my guest to you, let me tell you about the sponsors. Windward Islands Bank in Phillipsburg, in Simpson Bay, and in Cul-de-Sac. Windward Islands Bank for all your banking needs is a Windward Islands Bank. And GEBE, our local water and electricity company. GEBE, serving St. Martin for over 6 decades, is GEBE. And I'm Earl Gibbs, and with me this evening, after a long time, maybe almost 2 years, Mr. Connor. Mr. Connor is the director for the Nrpb. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful, Oral. It has been a while, but also a lot of things happen in between. So it's great to be here with you once again on your program, and look forward to the conversation.
You're a very difficult man to find.
Well, let's just say I've been quite busy for the last couple of
Mm.
years, very much engaged in executing the projects at the National Recovery Program Bureau, and just trying to keep things moving in a pace that we can all be happy about. Obviously, it's been challenging for all of us, globally, locally, and otherwise. So with all of the challenges that we have, there's a lot of adjusting and a lot of managing and a lot of maneuvering you have to do in order to keep things moving. But nonetheless, things are moving well, and I'm happy to be here with you this evening.
So now, you've been director of the NRPB for how long now?
Actually, this is going into my fourth year.
And the office have, what, 3 more years to go? Something like that?
Well, not necessarily, because we just got the extension. That will be disclosed. It was disclosed a couple of weeks ago after the last steering committee meeting. The Dutch agreed to extend the projects or the time frame of the trust fund for an additional 3 years. So we're going to 2028, and that gives us sufficient time to execute the projects in its fullness and in terms of its completeness. I think one of the aspects to the projects that we are managing is that most of these projects came out of Irma and Maria hurricane, and a lot of what happened initially was for a response to the emergency that the island was faced with back then. But in addition to the emergency responses, we were always building development projects, because the World Bank basically works in that fashion in terms of development. So a lot of times persons saw what we were doing kind of slow, but now, some 3-4 years later, you can see where the procedures and the policies of the World Bank pays off when we complete projects, because we have completed some projects.
Now, you have the steering committee,
Yes.
the World Bank, and NRPB. You fall where, in the middle?
We are actually, everything that we do on behalf of government. We are the implementation unit. What we are becoming is more of an implementation organization, but we are an implementation unit implementing projects on behalf of government.
But
of
projects
St.
are
The approval of
by the
projects
steering
by
committee,
the steering committee on consensus. I think you had Marcel here,
Right,
Mr.
yeah.
Gomes here a while back
Yeah,
as well.
about a little over a year.
Yeah, a little over a year. And the steering committee is made up of 3 persons representing one St. Martin, one the Netherlands, and the other one the World Bank. So you have the country director for the Caribbean region for the World Bank is represented on the steering committee. You have an individual that is appointed by the government of the Netherlands representing the Netherlands in this arrangement. And then you have Mr. Gomes representing St. Martin as well on behalf of the Prime Minister. Actually, the Prime Minister is the one the position of the Prime Minister is the one represented or a designate, and Mr. Gomes is a designate for that.
There hasn't been a short amount of criticism of your office and the World Bank. And how you feel about that? Because we had Hurricane Irma on what in 2017.
September of
Yeah, and it's
2017,
going to be
indeed.
almost 5 years now.
Almost 5 years. And oftentimes, with criticism, you tend to look at the facts, and you tend to look at the scenarios, and you respond that way. But as far as the trust fund goes, the trust fund was established in 2018. My office was there was an interim committee working for government on some of the emergency projects back then, in 2018, and then my office was established January of 2019. The criticism sometimes is definitely something that is placed, but when I look back, today, and I look at the accomplishments that we've been able to achieve, you tend to understand why it would take the time that it's taking in order for us to implement these projects. Because number one, you have a trust fund with public funds.
It's almost a billion, $500 million, right?
It's $1 billion, $500 million.
Dollars, yeah.
So it's over $1 billion in public funds. This is taxpayers' money. Number two, it is to respond to and enhance and implement resilience for St. Martin. So it's not just a quick fix. And then number three, this investment that has been made has to be implemented right once. We don't have much space for error. So a lot of the, we were talking about the tailoring before we speak off camera, but a lot of what tailors would say you have to do is measure twice and cut once, right? I mean, the fact that it is taking the time that it is because of a lot of the stringent requirements by the World Bank that we are not used to as a country and as an institution that is here to represent the government. You want to ensure that things are done properly.
Now, should I say you was a politician or still a politician?
I was a politician. You could say that.
You was a minister at one time.
I was a minister.
Was a member
yes.
of parliament,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes, I was.
I heard politicians speaking about you like they want your head on the plate.
Well, the good thing about having been in that arena for some time is that I don't really take it personal. Sometimes people have a responsibility to make sure that the public is informed. And everyone uses their own way of communicating to the public. If you ask me personally, I would not behave in such a manner. That is why oftentimes I do not respond to that because, it's personalities, it's characters. But at the same time, when there's a need to inform the public on what is being done and bring facts forward, you have to do that so that the general public can understand what it is we're doing. So, and you have to be a little mature and a little thick-skinned to be able to handle some of those criticisms. And I take it in stride. I mean, sometimes, if you would hear, some people would tell me about a discussion or a situation or a comment that was made, and then the next day the same person called me to get a clarity on the comment that they made, and I would have to explain to them, in a factual way what the issue is or why some things are the way that they are, and that's a responsibility that I hold, and I want to be respectful to the position that I have, and so I never take those things personal.
I saw last week actually, the relocation of people from Pond Island.
Mm-hmm.
Over $12 million.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to go via the Nrpb too?
Right. That what you have at Pond Island is a situation that has been sort of a challenge for St. Martin over the years. As you know and I know, persons who are connected to this community, going back 40, 50 years, we know that the dump is an issue. We've always had that issue. What has been available through this trust fund is a project for us to not only clean up the dump or clean up the situation that is there, but also fix for a long term and introduce introduce reforms to the country in order for the country to be able to manage its waste. An island such as ours that has the population size that it has, that have a robust economy producing great economic figures. You have a tourism product that brings millions of people here annually. All of that are generating things that generate waste. And there's something we have to do with it. And what we've done over the years, for the last 35, 40 years, is place it in the middle of Phillipsburg, and we need to address that. So what that comes with, because we're dealing with the World Bank, because we're dealing with some things that the World Bank calls safeguards, because the World Bank in itself is very risk averse. They do not get into things that has high risk or anything that is considered high risk. They make sure that mitigating measures and factors are implemented in a very strong way to deal with some of the safeguards, as you would call them, within these projects. So one of the things that the dump, we call this project EDMP project, Emergency Debris Management Project. And what it did, the project comprised of different components. One was the lagoon that was cleaned up. Most people saw that, and we got a lot of positive responses for that. And again, that was something that was done and managed through the trust fund on behalf of the government. We have the.
But I want to, Mr. Cohen, excuse me, please. I want to come back a little bit on that.
I'm getting to the dump.
On the dump, because
I'm getting to the dump because you're talking about 12 million.
But there's also 6.5 million going towards business, and a lot of people in this community are really upset about it.
That is exactly what I'm getting to, because if you read the editorial in one of the local newspapers on this situation itself, it talks about the fact that people can see this as someone benefiting from doing something illegal or wrong over the years. But I asked myself the question in the newspaper, kind of frame it that way, that in dealing with these situations with the World Bank, with public funds, you have to do things right? And if the World Bank isn't asking me who's living there, how they got to St. Martin, are they legal, are they operating, the World Bank is saying who's going to be affected by this project when we start to do works at the dump. And those that are living in the vicinity, you need to do an inventory of. And everyone that is there needs to be relocated. You call it a resettlement plan that you have to put in place, which we have just finished the draft. It's on public review. That's why these figures and numbers have been disclosed, because we do things in a transparent way. We have support of government in terms of the implementation, because again, we are fixing a problem, and we have the budget, we have the means to fix the problem. But once the problem is repaired, we're not going to go back to that. So it's like the immigration picking up an illegal on the road, and they have to deport them. We don't do that for free, right? No one says, well, I have to pay my taxpayers' money, I have to buy a $400 ticket to deport someone off of the island. So in the same way, you're looking at the situation and you say, well, these people have to move, right? You have persons that, and the document is on our website. The public, we're asking the public to review the document and in certain cases, give their opinion, and maybe you could do the same because it's their publicly.
Well, no, that's why I'm here with you talking. Not just,
no, but
I think the thing is this. Right, a lot of people, this is not me speaking now, people I spoke with, they said, look, the World Bank is rewarding business $6.5 million, illegal, undocumented people.
Well, it's not business getting $6.5 million. Yeah. The project in terms of resettling what's there, out of there, cost $6.5 million. So it's not money going to the business. So
how is the money going to be dispersed?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The document in every project affected person or situation has to be dealt with as an individual case. So we have 141 affected persons or businesses there.
So no,
That
how many business, how many persons? Because
no, it's 141 individual
Individual,
cases.
yeah.
So you're looking at 105. So a business would be a file, a person would be a file. A business owned by a person would be one because you own the business there. So you're talking about 141. You're talking about 141 individual
Yeah.
cases that have to be compensated one way or the other to remove them from there. Like I mentioned earlier, the World Bank isn't asking who's legal, who is illegal, who have a business license. That's our problem. That's St. Martin's problem. The project is looking at these people are going to be affected, and so we have to remove them from there so that the project could continue. What I was getting to with regard to the cost is that this EDMP project is about $80 million. This is not, we are not just cleaning up the dump, we're cleaning up the country. We remove debris from the lagoon, we clean up the shorelines at the lagoon.
Some people question that also in terms of the cost to remove them.
But you know what happened, Mr. Gibbs? Not a scrap from the lagoon was left on St. Martin. Everything was removed off of the island. You're not going to get out for free.
Well, there's a remaining part of a boat right outside the studio in the lagoon where we are located right now, so I can always show that to you.
Well, and if that was part of the project, I'm not sure, because they did a very extensive interview on all of the wreckages that were in the lagoon. We even cleaned up boats that were from 1995, from Lois in the hurricanes.
And that's from 1995. That's still there.
Well, then that's something that we'll go look at, and I'll ask the team about that, because again, the EDMP project is dealing with all of those issues. We're cleaning up the island. We are not only cleaning up the island, we're implementing new measures moving forward with regard to waste management. We are helping government introduce new legislation, new policies. We are helping government design, build, and introduce an operating element. We are also looking at introducing a waste authority. So all of this is geared towards fixing this problem that we've had. So if we want to get hung up on $6 million for $100 million problem that all of us created, then I would say, that's an unfortunate situation, because we have to look at the positive, despite the fact that you're dealing with, you may be dealing with some illegals, you may be dealing with some illegal activity, but it is not about the illegal in the illegal activity, but more so is that we need to remove them from the area, get them resettled in one way, form, or fashion, and then be able to finalize the project. $85 million
is assigned for that entire project.
It's for the EDMP.
And the lagoon was how much?
The lagoon was about 14 and a half.
So you still have some good money left there.
That's what I'm saying. $85 million is for the EDMP. That includes the lagoon. That includes we bought equipment for Rummy to help them with the daily management of the dump. We've bought them. If you notice that we have the suppression of the fires was very effective. These are the things that
we can see improvement there.
There is improvement, and we need to realize that that despite the fact that we are complaining about $6 million in a project, it is $6 million of Dutch taxpayers' money.
I don't think, Mr. Connor, you're a local just like myself. We were born here, grew up here, live here, have our business here. I think what people are saying is that when they look at it, it's like certain people are being rewarded for activity that wasn't that all legal, because he had a dump. The government agreed to at times.
But I blame all of us.
But
I blame all of us for that, because we allow ourselves day in and day out to let it continue. I mean, I tell people, I apologize to some of the people that come here and have to see this, because I am as responsible for this as any illegal that is sitting there or that has been that has been operating there. Why? Because this is something like you mentioned, Mr. Gibbs, that we've seen over the years, and we've let it happen, year in and year out. So I feel great now that we can look at that problem, and that is the minister, and I speak about this almost on a weekly basis. And one of the things that I'm proud of is that the minister, as a young man, he didn't make as much contribution to the dump as I did, right? And it's not his problem, but he is in a position today to solve it once and for all, right? And not only him, but the entire government. And that is why I think we should feel proud of the fact that we have this hurdle that we have to get over. The way the World Bank works is very transparent. So the general public will know, what the general cost is. Of course, you have to respect people's privacy. So even the person who may be there illegal, I cannot just go and disclose and say Harry or John or Smith or Susie is getting X amount. But what I'm responsible for, and this is our fiduciary responsibility in terms of managing properly the funds that has been allotted to this project, is that you need to do it in a very transparent way, despite the criticism that it brings.
I understand what you're saying. I also understand many of our people argument that the World Bank has been very slow. I also understand that the World Bank is trying to make sure that it's done the right way without any preference to parties, and I admire that. The thing is that it's a lot of money. There was a deadline on that money, on that half
a billion
dollars.
More than half a billion
right.
dollars.
Your office term has been extended, so the deadline.
Well, the original time was to 2025, 7 years. Now it has a 3-year extension, so it's going to 2028.
But there was a part where if Simran didn't use the money at a particular period, then it will expire. Has that been extended?
Well, I mean, the fact that now it has been extended, you have enough time to finish a project. One of the challenges that you had, and someone told this to me, I would say about 5 years ago. They said, if I give you $1 million to build a house, if you get $1 million today, will you have the house tomorrow? And it's no. You're not going to be able to. Our economy cannot absorb $550 million within a short period of time in doing it right. Right?
With multiple projects.
With multiple projects, and not only projects that are responding to emergency situations, but projects that are looking forward to developing the country in areas where we were lacking. So, when you look at the amount of projects that we're doing and the amount of money that we've spent, I mean, I remember the last time I was on your program, we were talking about how much money was spent, and I was coming here with like something like $10 or $12 million spent. I could say today we've spent over $160 million in projects. We've disbursed, the World Bank has disbursed over over $330 million has been disbursed. So that means that projects have been designed, budgets has been set, and monies have been disbursed. What does that mean? That means that we can continue with the projects that we're doing without interruption. However, we're doing it in an environment that's very volatile. You have COVID. We didn't budget for COVID, but COVID happened. We have now, because of COVID and the economic downturn in terms of the supply chain issues, all of those things, those issues are affecting us as well. So now we have to go back.
Inflation also now.
Inflation is a big one. But inflation means that prices will increase, but it is worse when you can get material versus material being more expensive. Because if material was more expensive, but you could still get it, you could budget up and say, but imagine, or you can increase your budgets to cover those costs. But imagine I have a contract with a contractor to do a project for a year and a half. and you're looking at a time base that has to be done within a period of time. And the contractor comes back to tell you, well, the lead time back in the day to get a shipment in was 2 to 3 weeks. Now it's 2 to 3 months. That's an issue because the contract is still fixed within a period of time that you have to execute. And so, there are a lot of challenges that we've been and hurdles that we were able to get over. But at the same time, we anticipate a number of challenges in the future.
So all the funding to the airport, that's over now.
The airport project, I'm happy to share, is going well. There's a lot of public capital that was invested in that, at the very beginning. But today we can say and we can see that the approach to the airport was the right one, and the country will benefit from this project very soon. I was told that the departure area, that's what the project team is saying, will be completed by the end of this of next year, the end of 2023, beginning 2024. Because with construction, you could always. I like to talk about periods as opposed to dates. So the first quarter or the second, the last quarter or the first quarter in 2024. But we will have the departure hall, and then what am I saying? No, this year. The first quarter of 2024, it will be ready, and
everything.
No, the departure area, the upstairs.
Oh, okay.
And then they're gonna move downstairs. But it's an airport, so if you travel as I have, you would notice that airport always have areas where it's boarded off because construction, repairs, upgrades are going on. So, and we will be no different. We'll see, as it is now, you use a portion. I think we're using about 35% of the footprint. But by the end of this year, that will increase, tremendously, because then you're getting the upstairs area, departure area ready, and then going into the last part of 2024, you will see that the bottom area will be completing and with all of the improvements and the upgrades that comes with the project.
For the average person, they're still saying, "Oh, wow, that's long."
It's a lot of time, but it's a lot of money as well. Airport is about $150 million project that we're working on, and it's a lot more challenging when you have to repair something as opposed to building it. So, and you have to work around a lot of different security issues and requirements that the airport have to live up to, despite the fact that they have construction going on. So, it's tough. It's a tough environment to be in, but you have to, and this is what I pride myself on. You have to stay steadfast. You have to remain focused, and you have to work towards the goal. And I think if we do that as a country, we will be, this bitter pill that we have to swallow today, will benefit from it tomorrow.
All right. In case you just joined us, I'm Oral Gibbs. This is Oral Gibbs Live. My guest is Mr. Connor. Mr. Claret Connor is director of the Nrpb. When we come back, we'll continue to speak with him right here on Oral Gibbs Live.
In order to know what you want out of life, you need to observe, listen, and try it yourself.
Promises, we can make it if we work together. That's just how it is. Let's stand strong, and serve the land. Working hard as one nation, yes we can.
The more difficult it is to achieve, the more satisfying it is to make it.
Just believe in us, we'll see you through it all. Never give up. Never give up. We can make it.
Never forget those who were there for you. And if you dream big, you might just achieve it.
The power to serve, standing for community. energy. OGEB.
Make use of Web mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download Web mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit.
Guest is Mr. Connor. He's the director for the Nrpb, and we're here speaking with Mr. Connor here on Oral Gibbs Live. And I was just speaking with him during the break about the boat that I told him about earlier, and we can confirm now that that process moved. So at least that's the
No, but that's why you have to. That's what we do. I mean, everything you it's good when the public are engaged, when the public feel some sense of ownership to what's going on. Because, Mr. Gibbs, if we see something in the lagoon tomorrow that is polluting the lagoon again, we're not going to accept it, because we say we spent too many years looking at that situation, and now it's clean, it's pristine, it's beautiful. Being allowed nobody to mess it up.
Definitely. And what about the schools? Because, I had a former minister of education in the program, and he said to me that according to the World Bank, schools, repair of schools or rebuilding the schools was not a priority. That's going to surprise a lot of people.
No, let's
Or I can name the minister.
No, you don't need to. I understand the statement, because you have to put things into perspective. What you had right after the hurricane was a bunch of emergency issues that you had to deal with. You had a fire station. You had issues with the emergency services. You had issues with shelters. You had issues with schools, right? So what was done at the very beginning, you had to then set a list of priorities and then set up an approach to how would you address these priorities. And when you're talking about World Bank projects, you're talking about elements that are very stringent in terms of its approach. So you're talking about they have a bunch of abbreviations. You have the ESIA and ESMP and the CSMP and all these kind of different abbreviations. But what it basically is talking about is impacts. How does what we're going to do impact, and what is there already to mitigate some of these elements that we're going to find when we did an assessment of the impact. So the schools repairs, we did actually initially the repairing of schools so that schools can be retrofitted in terms of its ability to deal with the future hurricanes in repairs. And then you had more extensive repairs of those schools that were more heavily damaged. We did the emergency repairs to schools, sort of patching up roofs and putting in windows, etc., etc. And then the more extensive damaged schools went to a more detailed project where rebuilding schools, and we did the same thing with some of the shelters, because some of the shelters were actually in schools, so you had an opportunity to basically address two birds with one stone. So in terms of the prioritization, it isn't about saying schools isn't important, but at that point in time, everything was important, and you had to deal with what you had to deal with first, because if you had a police station that was leaking, windows blown out, doors, are not secure, etc., that they protect the population, so you had to deal with that first and foremost, and we did that. And like I was saying earlier, you can't do everything at once, because you need to absorb it as well. You have to do all this bidding, you have to make sure that the bidding process goes transparently and properly, in order for you to get the bids, the project teams that is working on the bid for the schools, for instance, was the project teams that were working on the homes. So the homes was a priority, dealing with the social homes, dealing with and that was one of the big discussions we had when I was here the first time, dealing with all of the home repair, the roof repair, etc., etc.
You did most of that now, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when you look at where we are now versus what was done, the discussion we were having then was that now we could safely say, persons, the project that we've done with regard to homes and home repair, that is behind us. I think we have something like 25 more homes to complete. We have repaired and upgraded all of our emergency systems in terms of the hurricane shelters. They are completed, upgraded, with better facilities, backup water systems, etc., etc. We have purchased 3 fire trucks for the fire department, 4 ambulances on their way. So all of these things had to be done. Going back to the EDMP, we were having fires on the dump. You had to deal with that as well. You had to make sure that all of that, those urgent and emergency elements was dealt with. And now we are working on building schools, completing the repairs of schools, and also looking at the library as well.
The home repair program, I was going through my file just earlier this last week, and I saw a photograph that I had on my side, you and one of the recipients of that home repair program, and she was holding your hand. She was like, "Thank you." I mean, the expression in her face was just
you see,
incredible.
that's those are the things that cause that puts the criticism in perspective. Why? Because you are basically, in some certain instances, touching people's lives. And we've been through hurricanes ourselves. I was here for Irma, Maria. I was here for Lois. I was here for those in the 80s, and when I was back on the island after studying. And you understand the devastation and the loss of hope that people can have when they see their property and their homes destroyed. And so when you get an opportunity like we had it as an island to put all of this back, and on behalf of the people and the government that you're doing it for, you feel a sense of pride to know that that person is not only happy because they have their home back, but they have a home that has been improved based on government standards, because right after the hurricane, government said we want to build back better. So build back better means I'm not putting back on the old sheet, or I'm not using the same technology that got damaged the last time, but we're going to improve on that, and that's what the engineers did.
Okay. So you said there are 2 other areas that you're working on right now.
Excuse me?
2 other areas in terms of disbursement of funds and so forth, projects.
Well, we are working on a number of projects. We still continue with the Emergency Repair Project 1, which has doubled in its budget. It was $52 million, now it's $101 million dollars. Oh. And that has the school repairs in it, that has the fire and ambulance department building repairs in it, that has the home repairs in it, that has the purchasing of vehicles, emergency vehicles, etc. in it. So that that project has over 150 different activities that is going on. And then we have the enterprise support project, where it serves the small and medium enterprises on this island, where persons have access to funding, where some of the funding is about 65% of it is a grant. So let's say, for instance, a business is asking for $100,000 in funding to do various things. 65% of that can be done.
There's a deadline too on that, right?
Well, it's still ongoing. It has been extended to 2026.
So everything has been extended, basically.
And you see, when you think about where we were versus where we are and where we're going to be in a few years, you realize that it is people dealing with this, not products or systems, it's people. So the World Bank have representatives, the Dutch government have representatives, and St. Martin has representatives. So persons understand the reality on the ground, and sometimes you have to adjust, even when agreements have been made in the past to say, this is when it is, this is how it is, and this is how it's going to be done. So we are adjusting where the need is, but we cannot relax because we have to push forward. The FLRP is the school repair that I mentioned. 2 schools will be rebuilt in the library. We also have a digital government project, helping government revamp its whole digitalization of services.
I want to go back to the library. I think that's very important. Where you right now with the library, because a lot of people notice the current location.
The location,
right?
yeah.
Understand that it was going to be expanded. What's happening there?
Well, we just, if you notice, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the papers, they saw myself with the World Bank director, the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, and the Prime Minister sitting at the table signing a grant agreement. So that project had what was called a preparation grant. And that preparation grant did a lot of the ground technical work to ensure that the requirements that would be in the grant agreement was met. Those requirements have been met, and the project now has a grant agreement in place. So those projects will come on stream in terms of reconstruction within the near future. I wouldn't be able to pin down a date, but I can say with the grant agreement being signed, as the minister said, the money now is secure, so now the project can continue.
Before the grant was approved, did they have to present drawings of the building?
Well, the good thing about the library and also the system of Real School, they already had stuff in place that they were working on. And so, but those things have to now be absorbed in the process of the World Bank system in terms of how projects are being managed and implemented and designed. So, that's a start, but it isn't necessarily what the end product will be. That is up to the project teams and the technical people to handle.
How many people you have working with you at the Nrpb?
Each project has the necessary technical expertise that is required. Right now, with regard to personnel, so you're looking at staff and consultants, we're about 52.
So you have a lot of consultants?
We do have some consultants. As I said, we have about 24. We have the formation for Nrpb is because it's set up like a ministry. So you have the secretariat, which is all of the technical people that works in my office under me, supporting in executing the preparation and execution of the projects. What you have is, in addition to that, you have persons that we hire within projects, like engineers, contract managers, persons with World Bank experience that understand the World Bank process. You have safeguards people. You have different types of services that is required per project, because every project has its own. It requires its own expertise, and those positions are very short term in terms of to a 2-year contract or 1-year contract that would be filled by a consultant.
Many locals or mostly outsiders?
All of the positions that have been filled within Nrpb have been procured within the local market. But when we say locals, we also have to ask the questions: who would be a local? But a majority of persons like you and I work with me, yes. People that their last name and their family and the history and connection to St. Martin. Yes, we do have quite a few.
Mr. Connor, what has surprised you most about the job as director for the Nrpb? Because you're head an organization with $500 million, and you don't have to worry about anything basically like the other ministries. You have all the money, everything is there. Just
And again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. If I give you $1 million today, and to build a house, you're not gonna have it tomorrow. So all of the challenges that the ministries are facing, because we are not doing this on our own without different departments within government as well. Huh? So we have to deal with government on a daily basis on the projects that we work on, because we're doing it on their
that's
behalf.
a challenge in itself.
No, but it's a challenge, but it's a necessary challenge, because when we are finished, we are temporarily, right? We're an institution that is set up temporarily, despite the fact that you would hear the World Bank management talking about the value of such an institution for an island, especially St. Martin, and looking at the region.
You mean NRPB?
And the way NRPB
Yeah.
is set up, yes. And they can see, because they understand how it works globally, they can see the value of having this type of capacity and knowledge that not only serves St. Martin, but serves the region. But we are focused on St. Martin as it is today. And as I said earlier, we're dealing with people, so adjustments can be made when necessary. But you ask me what surprises me, or what surprised me the most, is the fact that this opportunity that we have as a small little island in the Caribbean, I don't think another country or island would ever have it. I don't think another island in the kingdom or in this region will never have access to $1 billion, $500 million, that is public funds that have been granted. I ain't talking about, we don't have to pay back a red cent of this money. I don't think that this will ever happen again. And we have to take advantage of this as an island. We have to make sure that the investments that are made from this trust fund is done in such a way that generations can benefit from it, because it will never happen again, not in our lifetime.
You know, Mr. Connor, Hurricane Irma was the strongest hurricane in the history of record-taking hurricanes. We were devastated by that hurricane. And I don't think any other country went
we
through
were
that.
not the only island devastated.
But we were the most devastated of
But
all.
we were not
got
the only
brunt of
one.
it. Yeah, but we
But
got the brunt of it. Yeah.
You go around the Caribbean, you go to Puerto Rico. America prints its own money, and Puerto Rico didn't get what we have in terms of support as a country. You see the islands still, they may have access to capital, but they have to pay it back, right? And we could sit here 3 years later, 4 years later, or 5 years later, and say, oh my God, the hurricane hit in 2017. We're in 2022. What have we done? Yes, we've helped restored. Right now we're repairing the 64 units over at Belvedere. So, and we gutted the entire building, retrofitting the building to become more hurricane resistant, and then people can just move back into their building.
So where they're right now, those that were in those
that should be finished by the beginning of next year.
So they were moved out to other.
Yeah, the people, again, the same thing we talked about earlier with the resettlement. That was you had to resettle them. You basically had to implement an action plan that says, I am moving Miss Smith from her apartment for 6 weeks, 4 months, or whatever the time period is. I am going to place her here. She's being compensated for that, and also assisted. And then when the apartment is finished, then she can be she can then return to her home and live safely. So, we do it in the project. So the same thing we're doing over at the dump over at Palm Island. The same thing that we do here, we did for private homes. We did the same thing, So the money that has been invested right in a right way. But like I always say, I hope we only do it once, because we're doing it right.
So, are there any project that you think is important that was not presented at NRPB? I think that might be a strange question.
No, but you see, when you think about the challenge that we had, and again, hindsight, people always say it's 2020. You could see things clearly because you're not there anymore. We are spending at the end of the day $550 million. We had a problem. We had a problem in terms of the devastation of the hurricane that cost us about 2.7 billion. So 550 million will never address all of the issues that we've had post-Hurricane Irma. But then again, you're talking about the island's devastation and the price tag that you could put on it, 2.3, 2.7. You get 550 million. I know personally that the insurance companies had indicated that it would have cost them about 600 million in terms of claims. So you could add up these figures. You had to, all of us had to take our savings and everything that we had, even despite the fact that we had insurance. When they come and tell you 30% uninsured, you had to go back and then refinance or do something to get yourself back, and we're still doing that as a people, as a community. And then you had, private funds from people that contributed. So it would be impossible to say. I would look at 550 and say, what I would have liked to see. But if it was 550 and the price tag was in that range, then you would be able to look at everything and then pick and choose. But if you're talking about a percentage of the big picture, we are lucky to be able to reach where we are with what we have. But again, as I indicated earlier, we are investing this, and hopefully we invest it right in terms of what it's producing in order for us as a country to benefit from it.
How many times does the Nrpb meet with the steering committee?
The steering committee, by rule, meets twice a year, biannually. However, the steering committee meets 4 times every year in different areas, simply because of the fact that at the beginning stages there was so much to discuss when you have an approved project that is being implemented versus projects that is being planned. And the steering committee also has the system also has a technical work group that is made up of persons in my office, persons in the Ministry of Interior in the Netherlands, and persons in the level of the country management unit at the World Bank. So we meet every other week, and we meet regularly as a technical work group, dealing with the more specific day-to-day issues. And then the steering committee meets, every couple of months to discuss the bigger picture.
And you also meet with the council of ministers?
We have presentation with council of ministers. We made ourselves available from time to time to Parliament. We have these engagements with the press, and we try to keep the public, because when we have a project, sometimes we have also stakeholder engagements. So we meet with affected people who are being affected by the project, or different organizations who are dealing with regard to the projects. So we're constantly, in the mode of communicating and discussing and explaining and, listening and observing and absorbing and reforming and, managing, basically. That's a whole cycle, as you would call it.
I want to go back a little bit here now. We're almost finished, but the government of St. Martin, right, present projects to the steering committee?
The projects that have been executed in the trust fund has to have outside of, because the trust fund was set up where you would do multiple projects, multiple avenues.
I think what I'm getting at is I want to help my audience get a picture of the process.
Right. So the process for us in terms of implementation,
it comes from the council ministers.
Has to come from the council ministers.
It
goes to the steering committee as a request on behalf of government. Who does?
The steering committee have to approve.
On consensus. So you can't have. It's not a majority rule. It has to be done in a way. So obviously, there's a lot of.
All 3 members have to agree.
Have to agree, or have no objection to it being executed. And not all of the projects we were all on the same page with. The Dutch have their own priority. The World Bank has their own approach to certain things, and St. Martin have a list of desires and wants that sometimes doesn't fit within the way the trust fund was set up, because the trust fund has to address the social need, the economic need, and then the governance.
I'm limited with time, so the council, the government submits to the steering committee, who then submits what to you as Nrpb?
Well,
and
we
then
take
on
it to the
bank?
steering committee in terms of the member that is representing the steering committee based on a council of ministers approval for a particular project. Let's say, for instance, the library, a letter went to the steering committee stating, we have a library, just to call it, just for the basics, so your listening audience, and your viewing audience can understand. We have a library that is damaged. We would like for this library to be, the repairs for this library to be funded. And then an assessment has to be done, a note has to be written, a technical designs, etc., and then a budget has to be presented. It goes back to the steering committee and they say, as far as that project that you requested, this is what we think we can do within the trust fund to that, and then the decision is made.
And the whole process can take 8 months. Yeah.
Well, it depends on where we are with what we have to do. It very much depends. I mean, it's in the beginning. I think the ERP1 project was approved within 3 months. But you see the challenges we had in it post the decision, because a lot of things that needed to be in place in order for it to function as a World Bank project wasn't in place. So you had to still get those things done.
Mr. Connor, I'm out of time. 30 seconds, all yours.
Well, Mr. Gibbs, again, it took us some time to get back. Hopefully, the next interview would be a lot quicker than this one was compared to the last one. But it's always a pleasure for me to sit with you and have these discussions on the improvements. As you know, as I indicated in the beginning, we are moving with our projects. There's a number of projects that is under implementation. We have a number of projects that we're planning. We didn't discuss mental health. That's a project that I find the country will benefit from very much, because especially now in these times where persons are challenged mentally because of what is going on around us. But all in all, I would continue to repeat myself in terms of what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. This is an investment into the people of St. Martin with public funds, and hopefully with the support of government and with support of the stakeholders on St. Martin, that this money would be redeemed, and the return on the investment would be seen for generations to come. With that, I thank you, and thank your audience for viewing.
Well, thank you, Mr. Connor. Wish you much success, all right?
Thank you, sir.
And that's it for now. See you next time. Till then, take care. Bye.